Ava sat beside her mother's bed, gently wiping the sweat from her forehead. The small apartment was hot and quiet, except for the sound of a weak ceiling fan turning slowly above them. Outside, cars honked in the distance, but inside the room, it was just the two of them. Her mother's breathing was shallow. She looked tired, her skin pale and dry. Ava had been taking care of her for months now, cooking, bathing her, giving her medicine, cleaning up after her. Every day felt longer than the last, but Ava stayed. She always stayed. Her mother slowly turned her head, her voice just a whisper. "You're a good girl, Ava," she said. "Too good." Ava smiled faintly and held her mother's hand. "Try to sleep, Mama," she said softly. "I'm right here." Her mother blinked slowly. "They'll come when it's time, not before." Ava didn't understand what she meant, but she just nodded and kept wiping her forehead. The others hadn't come. Not once. Melissa, Jordan, and Terrence always had excuses. Work. Travel. Let us know if it gets worse, they would say. But Ava never waited for help. She gave up everything, her job, her apartment, her plans, and moved back in. Her mother's eyes closed. That night was the last time her mother said anything clearly. The funeral came quickly. Ava wore a simple black dress and kept her head down. She had organized everything, the coffin, the flowers, the church service. She had no help. Still, the others showed up. Melissa arrived in a black designer dress with matching sunglasses. Jordan came late, talking on the phone. Terrence looked tired, like he hadn't slept. None of them hugged Ava. They just nodded at her. At the burial, Ava stood alone at the front. She dropped a single flower into the grave. Her mother was gone. A few days later, they sat in a small lawyer's office. Papers were stacked everywhere. A dusty fan blew warm air around the room. The lawyer opened a folder and began reading the will. To Melissa, the house in Surulere. To Jordan, the family shares. To Terrence, the savings and jewelry. He paused. "And that's the end of the will." Silence filled the room. Ava blinked. "What about me?" The lawyer looked confused. "There's no mention of you." Ava turned to her sibling. Melissa smiled slightly. "Maybe Mama forgot. She was sick, remember?" Jordan said nothing. Terrence looked away. Ava felt her chest tighten. Her ears rang. 5 years. She had been there every single day. Her boyfriend Marcus stood up. "This isn't right," he said. "We'll fight this." But Ava just sat there frozen. Her heart ached in a way she had never felt before. She hadn't just lost her mother. She had lost everything. 5 years ago, Ava had a different life. She was living in Abuja, working as a nurse at a private clinic. She had just started a new course in healthcare management. Her dream was to open her own small care center one day, a place where sick people, especially the elderly, could feel safe and respected. She was happy then, busy but hopeful. She had a boyfriend she loved, Marcus, and they were talking about getting a place together. Everything seemed to be going in the right direction. Then came the phone call. Her mother had fallen and hit her head. The doctor said she would need someone to stay with her full time. Her siblings were all busy. Melissa was running her fashion business in London. Jordan was working in tech in Canada. Terrence was somewhere in Lagos, doing freelance music gigs and chasing quick money. None of them could come. So Ava came. Just for a while, she told herself. A few weeks maybe. Just until things got better. But they didn't get better. 1 month turned into 2. Then a year. Then 5. Ava moved back into the family apartment in Surulere. It was old and small, and everything creaked. She slept on a thin mattress in the corner of her mother's room. She cooked every meal, cleaned every mess, washed every piece of clothing, and helped her mother with everything from taking her medicine to going to the bathroom. Her siblings sent money sometime. They called on holidays, but they didn't visit. Not once. Sometimes Ava would call them, hoping for support, even just a kind word, but the calls were short. Jordan always had to jump on a meeting. Melissa said she was too stressed to deal with this now. Terrence never picked up. Flashbacks came to her now, in quiet moments. Late nights with her mother coughing, whispering for water. Early mornings trying to change the bed sheets without waking her. Days when Ava cried in the kitchen silently, so her mother wouldn't hear. But her mother wasn't always kind. She had a way of making Ava feel small, even when Ava was doing everything for her. "You're just like your father, always too soft," she once said. "That's why your life is the way it is." When Ava asked her once why Melissa didn't visit, her mother had replied, "She has important things to do. Not like you." It stung. Ava wanted to believe it wasn't meant to hurt, that her mother was just tired or in pain. But deep down, she knew her mother favored Melissa. Always had. Melissa had the looks. Jordan had the brains. Terrence had the charm. Ava was the quiet one, the one who followed the rules, the one who never asked for too much. Her whole life, she did what was expected. She kept peace in the house. She helped with chores. She stayed home while the others went out. As a child, she once got a school award. When she showed her mother just said, "Melissa won that same thing last year. Try something new." Even as an adult, Ava carried that feeling, like she was never quite enough. But she stayed. She kept caring for the woman who often made her feel invisible. Not because she wanted praise. Not even because she expected love in return. She stayed because it was the right thing to do. Now, 5 years later, Ava looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman she saw. Her skin was tired, her eyes dull. Her hair, once always neat, was now pulled into quick, messy buns. She hadn't gone out with friends in years. She had turned down 2 job offers. She had said no to a weekend trip with Marcus because she couldn't leave her mother alone. All the things she dreamed of, her care center, her course, her little apartment with Marcus, were all packed away like boxes in a dark room. Waiting. Always waiting. And now her mother was gone, and with her the years Ava had given. But the saddest part wasn't the loss of time. It was realizing that even after all she did, even after all the nights and days she gave up, her name was not in the will. Her mother had died, and Ava was not mentioned. Not even once. It felt like the final proof that maybe she never mattered as much as she hoped. But somewhere inside her, something small started. The lawyer's office was small and a bit dusty. A ceiling fan turned slowly above, but the heat still made Ava's neck damp. Papers were stacked high on the shelves. A framed picture of the lawyer and his family sat on the desk, smiling in a way that suddenly felt too cheerful. Ava sat with her hands in her lap, fingers clenched. Marcus sat beside her, holding her hand gently. Across from them were her siblings, Melissa with her perfect hair and polished nails, Jordan tapping his phone quietly under the table, and Terrence chewing gum, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and opened a file. "All right," he said. "Your late mother's will. This is the final signed and notarized copy, updated last year." Ava sat up straighter. Her heart beat a little faster. The lawyer began reading. "To my beloved daughter, Melissa, I leave the family house in Surrey and all its contents." Melissa smiled, leaned back, and crossed her legs. "To my son, Jordan, I leave all shares in our father's transport business and the Toyota Corolla parked behind the compound." Jordan nodded slowly. No reaction, just like always. "To my youngest son, Terrence, I leave my gold jewelry, remaining savings in the Zenith account, and the family photo album." Terrence looked surprised. "Wait, really?" He glanced at Ava, then quickly looked away. The lawyer paused and flipped to the last page. "And that concludes the will." Ava blinked. She frowned. She waited. Then finally she asked, "Sorry, that's it?" "Yes," the lawyer said, glancing at her. "Your mother didn't include any other names." Ava's mouth opened, but no words came out. Melissa turned her head slowly and gave a small, almost playful smile. "Maybe Mama forgot," she said with a soft laugh. "She was sick after all." Jordan didn't look up. Terrence scratched his head. "That's weird. I thought she would. I mean, you were with her the whole time, right?" Ava stared at them all, her eyes wide. She felt like the air had been knocked out of her. Her ears buzzed. Her skin felt cold. "I gave up everything," she whispered. "I took care of her every single day. I didn't even leave the house unless Marcus begged me to." Melissa looked at her with a bored expression. "This isn't about effort, Ava. It's a legal document." Marcus leaned forward, angry. "She nursed your mother for 5 years while the rest of you were partying across the world. This doesn't make sense." "It's not our fault she wanted to play Florence Nightingale," Melissa muttered, crossing her arms. Jordan finally spoke, voice low. "Don't start a fight, please. It's already done." Ava stood up, shaking slightly. "Did she even love me?" She asked no one in particular. No one answered. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Not yet. She walked out of the office, heart pounding, air tight in her chest. Outside, the sky was heavy with clouds. It looked like it might rain. She leaned against the wall and finally let herself cry. Big, quiet sobs that came from deep inside. Marcus followed her out and wrapped his arms around her. "I'm so sorry," he said, holding her tightly. "This is wrong. We're going to fix it." Ava didn't speak. He pulled back and looked her in the eyes. "We'll find a lawyer. We'll challenge the will. There must be something we can do. You can't just walk away from this." She looked down at her shoes, the same ones she wore to the funeral. "I don't know," she whispered. Maybe she really didn't want me to have anything." Marcus shook his head. No way. She was sick, confused. Someone must have pushed her into this. "You gave your life to her." Ava took a shaky breath. Her mind was spinning. Her heart felt broken. She didn't know what hurt more, the words in that will, or the silence in her siblings' eyes. She had stayed. She had cared. She had loved her mother, even when it hurt. And now she had nothing. The next morning, Ava woke up feeling heavy, like there was a stone sitting on her chest. The words from the lawyer's office still echoed in her head. She hadn't slept much. Her mind kept going back to the will, to the way Melissa had smirked, and to the silence that followed when her name wasn't mentioned. Marcus made her some tea, but she didn't touch it. "I need to talk to her," Ava said finally. "Who?" Marcus asked. "Melissa." He gave her a worried look. "Do you want me to come with you?" Ava shook her head. I'll go alone. Melissa's apartment was in a tall, new building in Lekki. White walls, glass doors, everything shining. The guard at the gate let Ava in after calling upstairs. When the elevator doors opened, Melissa stood there in a silk robe, holding a smoothie. Oh wow, look who finally got tired of crying, she said with a cold smile. Ava didn't answer. She stepped inside. Melissa's living room was spotless and modern. Too perfect, Ava thought. Why did she leave me out of the will? Ava asked, her voice calm but tight. Melissa sat down on the couch. She didn't want you to have anything, clearly. That doesn't sound like her. Melissa rolled her eyes. You think just because you wiped her nose for 5 years, she owed you everything? No, Ava said. But she loved me. She said so. Melissa took a long sip from her smoothie. She loved a lot of people. Doesn't mean she wanted you in charge. Something didn't feel right. Ava looked around the room, then back at her sister. Did you talk her into it? She asked slowly. Melissa didn't reply. You were the only one who visited her before she changed the will. That's what the lawyer said. Last year, right? That was the last update. Melissa stood up. You're walking on dangerous ground, Ava. Tell me the truth. Melissa stared at her, then leaned close. There was another will, she whispered. The first one. You were in it. Ava froze. But that version is gone now, Melissa said with a shrug. People forget things. Documents go missing. You forged the new one. Melissa smiled but didn't confirm or deny it. Ava turned and walked out without another word. Her hands were shaking, her mind racing. Back home, Ava told Marcus everything. His face tightened with anger. This is serious, he said. We need a real lawyer. Someone who can investigate. Ava nodded, though she wasn't sure how they would pay for it. They visited a law firm the next day. The lawyer, a woman named Mrs. Ogunlade, listened carefully. She took notes, asked for dates, names, anything Ava could remember. This won't be easy, she said at the end. But if the first will existed and was destroyed, we can fight. We'll need proof, witnesses, and it won't be cheap. How much? Marcus asked. The number she gave was higher than they expected. Ava looked at Marcus. I don't want you to pay for this. You've already done so much. He squeezed her hand. We'll figure it out. But you can't let this go. They agreed to think about it and return with documents. That night, Ava sat alone in her room thinking. She remembered small things now, moments she had brushed aside. Like the time she found Melissa in her mother's room, speaking in low, angry tone. Or how her mother suddenly became cold toward her after that visit. Or how Melissa had started visiting more often, always when Ava wasn't around. She opened the drawer where her mother's old phone was kept. It had been off for months, but after charging it for a few minutes, the screen lit up. Ava scrolled through the photos and voice recording. Most were short clips of news reports or music. But then she saw one labeled August 3rd private. She pressed play. Her mother's voice came on, shaky but clear. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Melissa says this is best. Says Ava's too soft to handle money. But Ava, she's the one who stayed. She's the one who never left. I'm tired. My head doesn't feel right. Maybe I'll change it back. I don't know. Ava paused the recording, her hands covering her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. She played another one. If you're hearing this, Ava, I hope you understand. I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't want fights. I thought giving Melissa control would keep the peace. Maybe I was wrong. Ava sat in silence for a long time. These were not just random thoughts. These were confessions, regret, proof that her mother was confused, even pressured, proof that Melissa had taken advantage. She sent the recordings to Marcus, who replied right away. This changes everything. They went back to Mrs. Ogunlade the next day and showed her the files. The lawyer listened to the voice memos carefully, her eyes sharp. This is good, she said. Very good. It shows doubt, influence, maybe even manipulation. It's not solid enough to win by itself, but it's a strong start. What do we do next? Ava asked. We file a challenge to the will, the lawyer replied. We ask the court to freeze all assets until we can investigate. Ava nodded. For the first time in days, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Strength. She wasn't just the quiet one anymore. She was ready to fight. The courtroom was quiet, almost too quiet. Ava sat at the front with Marcus and her lawyer, Mrs. Ogunlade. Her hands were cold, even though the room wasn't. Across from her sat Melissa, dressed in black like she was still at the funeral. Jordan and Terrence sat behind her, avoiding Ava's eyes. The judge entered and everyone stood. Then the hearing began. The lawyer for Melissa started first, talking about the legal and final. Well, that gave everything to Melissa and Jordan. He said their mother was in full control of her mind and made a clear decision. Then Mrs. Ogunlade stood up. We are here to challenge the will, she said, because we believe it was created under pressure, emotional manipulation, and does not reflect the true wishes of the deceased. She looked over at Ava and gave her a small nod. The judge leaned forward. Do you have evidence? Mrs. Ogunlade nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Please allow us to play a voice memo recorded by the deceased on her personal phone. The room went still. Ava took out the phone and connected it to the speaker. Then she pressed play. Her mother's voice came through, soft and shaky. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Melissa says this is best. Says Ava's too soft to handle money. But Ava, she's the one who stayed. She's the one who never left. Maybe I'll change it back. The judge raised an eyebrow. Another memo played. If you're hearing this, Ava, I hope you understand. I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't want fights. I thought giving Melissa control would keep the peace. Maybe I was wrong. Ava's hands trembled, but her face stayed calm. Melissa shifted in her seat, looking nervous now. The judge looked at her. Ms. Melissa, did you visit your mother before the will was updated? Yes, Melissa said, forcing a smile. Of course. I brought her food, helped her clean. Did you ever talk to her about changing the will? No, Melissa said quickly. Mrs. Ogunlade stood up. Your Honor, I have a neighbor's testimony that says Melissa often visited alone and had arguments with the deceased behind closed doors. She was heard shouting more than once. The judge looked at Melissa again. I'll ask you again. Did you pressure your mother into changing her will? Melissa hesitated. No. We talked, but I didn't force her. The judge turned to Jordan. Were you aware of any changes being made? Jordan looked down. I knew she was going to change something, but I didn't ask questions. Terrence raised his hand from the back. Your Honor, may I say something? The judge allowed it. Terrence stood. I didn't think much of it at the time, but yeah. Melissa kept saying Ava didn't need anything. She told me our mom was planning to cut her out. Melissa turned around. Shut up, Terrence. The courtroom murmured. The judge raised a hand. Enough. He looked at Melissa. You're under oath. One more lie, and you will be held in contempt. Melissa said nothing. Her face had lost all its color. Then the judge turned to Ava. Ms. Ava, do you have anything you wish to say before I make a ruling? Ava stood slowly. She looked around the room, at her siblings, and then at the judge. For 5 years, I gave up my life to care for my mother. I wasn't looking for a reward. I did it because I loved her, even when she said hurtful things, even when she made me feel small. I was there. She paused, taking a deep breath. But to find out she left me nothing, it broke something in me. I thought maybe she didn't love me at all. But those voice memos, they reminded me that she was human. That maybe she was scared, tired, confused. And maybe someone took advantage of that. She looked directly at Melissa. I don't want revenge. I just want what's fair. The judge nodded and took a moment to review his notes. Then he spoke. This case shows clear signs of manipulation and emotional pressure placed on the deceased. The voice recordings and testimony support the claim. While we cannot undo everything, we can correct part of this. He looked at Ava. I hereby grant Ms. Ava a 1/3 share of the estate. The house will be sold and proceeds split. The savings and remaining assets are to be frozen until further division is settled. Melissa gasped. That's not fair. The judge raised his voice. Enough. If we find proof of forgery in the original will, criminal charges will follow. Melissa sat down hard, her face blank. Ava sat back, letting out a long breath. Marcus held her hand, smiling softly. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was something. And for the first time in years, Ava felt like she could finally breathe again. A few months had passed since the court decision. Life was calmer now. Ava no longer woke up with a heavy heart. The pain was still there, but it didn't control her anymore. She didn't feel like a loser anymore. She felt like someone who had survived something hard and came out stronger. The money from the estate had come through. Her share wasn't huge, but it was enough to help her start again. And the first thing she did surprised everyone, even Marcus. She started a scholarship fund. She named it after her mother, the Grace Foundation for Girls in Healthcare. Marcus asked her why. After everything she did, or didn't do, why name it after her? Ava smiled gently. Because I still loved her, and because I want to turn something painful into something good. Maybe someone else's daughter will have the support I never had. The scholarship would help young women from poor families study nursing and caregiving. Ava used part of her inheritance to fund the first round of students. Letters of thanks started to pour in. Handwritten notes from girls she had never met, thanking Auntie Ava for believing in them. Her heart began to heal. Her siblings, on the other hand, drifted away. Terrence moved to Port Harcourt, trying to restart his music career. Jordan stayed in Canada and barely called anymore. And Melissa? She went quiet. There were rumors she was being investigated for forgery, but Ava didn't follow the story. She had let it go. One quiet evening, Ava and Marcus were walking near the beach. The sun was low, and the sky was full of soft pink clouds. Marcus stopped walking and turned to her. You've changed, he said, smiling. In a good way. You're stronger now. Ava looked at him. I had to be. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a small box. When he opened it, there was a simple gold ring inside. I've loved you since before all of this, Marcus said. But seeing you fight, seeing you stay kind, even when the world was cruel, I've never been more sure. Will you marry me? Ava's eyes filled with tears. Yes, she whispered. They hugged, the ocean breeze blowing gently around them. Later, Ava used the rest of her inheritance to start something else, a caregiving foundation. She called it the Quiet Hands Project. It trained and employed women, especially those without family support, to care for the sick and elderly with respect, and just like Ava had done. Only now they wouldn't be invisible. They would be seen. They would be paid. They would be appreciated. People began to take notice. Her story was shared online. Donations came in. One of her first clients was an old man with no children. He cried the first day someone came to help him. Ava visited him once and sat with him in silence. He held her hand and said, "Thank you for not forgetting people like us." Ava smiled. I never could. She had lost time. She had lost her mother. She had lost the version of family she used to believe in. But she had found something else. Her voice. Her peace. Her power. The sun was just rising when Ava walked through the quiet cemetery. The grass was still wet with morning dew, and the air smelled like rain from the night before. She carried a single white flower in her hand. She hadn't been back since the burial. Now, months later, she felt ready. She found her mother's grave under the old mango tree, just as she remembered. The stone was simple, with her mother's name and the dates. No fancy words, no long message, just the basics. Ava stood there for a while, saying nothing. She let the silence wrap around her. Then, softly, she spoke. I used to come in here every night to check your breathing, she said. Sometimes you didn't even know I was there. You were tired. I get it now. She knelt down and placed the flower at the base of the grave. I gave you everything I had, and even though you didn't give it back, I still loved you. She paused. Her voice broke a little, but she kept going. Even when you forgot to love me back, I still did. She stood again and brushed off her skirt. I think I understand now. You were afraid. Maybe someone made you feel like you had to choose. Or maybe you didn't know how to say sorry. But it's okay. I forgive you. She looked up at the tree above the grave. A small bird landed on a branch and sang a short, sweet tune. Ava smiled. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt, not like before. I'm okay now. Really. She stepped back, took one last look, and whispered, Goodbye, Mama. Then she turned and walked away. Not with sadness. Not with regret. But with peace. Hey besties. Thanks so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed Ava's emotional journey of betrayal, love, and justice, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more drama-filled stories. Up next, her friends invited everyone except her to their girls' trip, so she booked one seat beside someone they'd never forget. See you in the next one. Bye!